Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today is Warrant Officer Class 2, Justin Tomlinson from the Australian Army Intelligence Corps. Today marks the 117th anniversary of the Corps' formation on the 6th of December 1907, and also its 85th anniversary of continuous service from 1939 through until the present day. This evening, we're honoured to acknowledge Mr. Frank St John, Chief Operating Officer, Lockheed Martin, United States, accompanied by Mr. Stephen Robertson, Chief Executive, Lockheed Martin Australia and New Zealand, Lieutenant General Peter Lay, former Chief of Army, and fellow members of the Royal Military College Duntroon, Class of 1974, 50th Anniversary Reunion, and the accompanying delegations. We also warmly welcome members of the Royal Military College Class of 1984, 40th Anniversary Reunion, and members of the Royal Military College Duntroon Class of 1999, 25th Anniversary Reunion, who are in attendance, and the 1st Recruit Training Unit from the Royal Australian Air Force Base in Wagga Wagga. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
For those who are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Harold Boys. Arthur Boys was born in Melbourne, Victoria on the 3rd of March 1896. Known as Bill, he was the youngest of 3 children born to Arthur and Helen Boys. After completing his schooling, Bill was accepted into the Royal Military College Duntroon, commencing his 4-year course on the 18th of February 1915. Bill graduated from the Corps of Staff Cadets at RMC Duntroon on the 11th of December 1918 and was awarded the rank of Lieutenant. Although initially acting as a support instructor at training camps, Bill enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in December 1918 and left Australia for France in late January 1919 on board HMAT Marathon. Although the First World War had already ended, Bill served with the 3rd Machine Gun Battalion and the 9th Demobilisation Regiment in France and the AIF headquarters in London before being discharged from the AIF in June 1919. Rather than returning to Australia immediately, Bill joined the 4th Battalion Guards Machine Gun Regiment of the British Army for 9 months. Details of his military record until May 1921 do not survive, but by mid-1921 he had returned to Australia and was serving as an adjutant and quartermaster within the Permanent Army. Bill remained an officer in the Army throughout the interwar period, spending time in Perth and New South Wales before returning to Melbourne to work out of Victoria Barracks. While in Perth in 1924, Bill married Marjorie Ethel Armstrong at St George's Cathedral. Marjorie's brother Hugo would go on to serve in the Royal Australian Air Force during the Second World War, earning a Distinguished Flying Conduct Medal and bar before being killed in a flying battle over the English Channel in February 1943. With the outbreak of the Second World War, Bill Boys was seconded to the 2nd Australian Imperial Force for staff duties. He was promoted to Major and appointed to the 2nd 16th Infantry Battalion in April 1940. After spending 1940 moving between command units within Australia and following a short stint in hospital with influenza, Bill was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel in October 1940. He was given command of the newly formed 2nd 26th Infantry Battalion and from late November oversaw the men training first at Gravelly Camp in Queensland and then to Red Bank Camp in January 1941. In late February, the battalion moved south to Bathurst to join the other units of the 27th Brigade and began preparing to embark for overseas service. The battalion left Melbourne on the 30th of July 1941 and arrived in Singapore on the 15th of August. In Singapore, the 2nd 26th was camped near Changi village on the northeastern tip of the island. With war against Japan increasingly likely, the battalion began deploying to Malaya in October 1941 to continue to train and assist in preparing defences on the Malayan Peninsula. On the 7th of December 1941, the Japanese attacked the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, alongside simultaneous attacks on the Philippines, Northern Malaya and Singapore. Over the next 3 months, Australian, British and Indian forces in Malaya fought to attempt to uphold the island barrier and prevent Japanese occupation of British territories in the area. Following fighting on the Malay Peninsula in January 1942, the 2nd 26th Battalion arrived on Singapore Island in late January, taking up positions defending the causeway between the island and the mainland peninsula. In early February, Boys relinquished command of the 2nd 26th Battalion and was transferred to the permanent supernumerary list. He took over command of X Battalion, an extra battalion within the Australian 8th Division comprised of around 200 reinforcements and unassigned men. Following the Japanese attack on Singapore on the 8th of February, X Battalion was ordered to recapture the Jurong Line and on the 10th of February. Comprising poorly trained and equipped soldiers, the battalion advanced to an assembly area near Bukit Timah in the darkness. Unbeknownst to them, the plan for the counterattack had changed, but in the chaos of fighting, the 22nd Brigade had forgotten to recall ex-battalion. Cut off and in unfamiliar territory, the battalion were vulnerable to Japanese attack. Before dawn on the 11th of February, the Japanese 18th Division launched a sudden and well-concerted attack on ex-battalion. The Japanese soldiers used hand grenades to ignite a petrol dump near battalion headquarters, bathing the battleground in firelight. Sentries were unable to give adequate warning. Some Australians were bayoneted in their sleep, while others struggled to reach their weapons to fight back against the Japanese. In the chaos that followed over the next 24 hours, only 40 members of ex-battalion managed to return to the safety of the 22nd Brigade lines. They were reallocated to other battalions, and many became prisoners of war following the fall of Singapore on the 15th of February 1942. Initially declared missing in action, it was later determined that Lieutenant Colonel Boys had been killed in action between the 11th and the 12th of February 1942. He was 45 years old. In 1946, Bill was posthumously mentioned in dispatches. Lieutenant Colonel Boys' remains are buried at Cranji War Cemetery beneath the inscription selected by his family back home, "Forever Remembered." His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Harold Boys, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.